And I'm delighted to introduce our interviewee for today. We have Bita Milanian. She is the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing at Ribbon, and also the winner of the 2019 Agent of Change Award. Bita, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So if we can kind of maybe start with, your work in the space, and I suppose give our audience an idea of kind of what you've been doing that really kind of made you stand out to us as the winner back in 2019.
I've been in the telecommunications industry starting in 1996. It's been quite a while.
Wow.
And, I was lucky enough to start my professional career in this industry as at the time, it wasn't as, okay, I need to start over again.
Okay.
I have to collect my thoughts here.
No problem. Shall I ask the question again?
That would be helpful.
Sure. So why don't we kind of start, at the top in terms of, what work you've been doing towards gender parity in the kind of telco and tech sector, and what really, I suppose, made you stand out as our agent of change in 2019?
I have been in the telecommunications tech industry ever since I remember. I really started my professional career back in 1996 in the industry, and I felt really lucky that at the time I was introduced to the tech world, and it has truly changed my perspectives in life and in my professional life and personal, being able to connect with so many people around the globe and really understand the infrastructure that enables all of us as humanity to connect with one another. And technology obviously plays a huge role in that, especially today we see that. So throughout these 22 plus years, or however long it's been, a lost track, I've seen so much of the, gender equality, women equality, all these movements. And being younger at the time, I was 22 when I entered the industry, I didn't really have a perception of these things. And I just adapted myself to those environments. And if there was ever any situation that may have I stumbled upon, I never really thought about it too much. So I just kind of rolled with the punches. But then as I got older and as, more women started getting involved with addressing the issues at hand that we're talking here, I was able to connect with so many amazing women who really set forth the movement, especially with the women in tech. And, I've really tried ever since then, this was back in maybe early 2000s, where organizations started developing and building, nonprofits came together, especially within our sector. And I was part of the founding members of Women in the Channel, which was a group of women in the telco world selling and reselling products and services in the channel partner community. And that's where I got involved, and it just became part of who I am and my everyday, both personal and work life to, support those initiatives. So it's become my second nature, in short answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think being in the industry for so long, you've probably really witnessed the real kind of change in terms of the way, women in this space have been treated. So it makes sense that you've been so active in it because you've been in it for so long, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but so what did winning the kind of 2019 award for, the Agent of Change, what did it mean to you? What significance does that hold for you?
I was lucky enough that my team submitted that nomination. I had totally forgotten all about it until you guys contacted me. I'm like, what is this? And, I was pleasantly, obviously surprised and delighted and flattered. And, it's always rewarding and it's always uplifting and energizing to get such recognitions. Yes, it's nice to have the accolades and all that, but it's really validation for your hard work that it's being recognized. And I think it's so important for us to recognize each other's work and hard work and being change makers in the world. And I have had that again. It's something that I do day in, day out. I make sure I recognize anybody I see that's doing anything good in the world. So for me to get that recognition was really truly special.
Yeah. Well, I very much love the fact that you said that any time that you can recognize somebody doing something good, that you do that in your personal life. Because I think sometimes we think of these very macro level things that we should be doing, like award ceremonies, and sometimes we forget it. Sometimes it's just the little things that we as individuals can do on a daily basis. So I'm definitely with you on that one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, without wanting to, of course, be negative, because I always, have to caveat before I ask these kind of questions, but I think being a woman in this space is such a unique experience. But what have been some of the challenges that you've kind of faced, and how did you get past those?
Again, early on, I didn't even notice the difference. I didn't even think about it. It also has to do with your cultural upbringing, to how you handle these types of situations where you're, being treated unfairly. I grew up in a country, I was born in Iran. I immigrated from Iran when I was 13. So I had those cultural notions, I think, that, when an elderly person or a male figure asks you to do something, you just do it. You don't question it. It was just second, it was something that I didn't even think about when I was younger. But then as I got older and I reflected on those things and those situations, I realized how wrong they were. So, and then ever since then, when I had that realization, I never thought about of myself as a woman versus a man situation. I really just, tried to work harder in some way, shape, or form where I saw an opportunity where I'm not being treated fairly.
Mhm.
And there have been incidences where there have been indecent situations in the workplace, and I just have kind of not allowed them to bring me down, and if anything, use them as an opportunity to help others and be more conscientious about it. I don't know if I'm making sense. I know it's a tough question. I'm trying to get around it without going directly
No,
answer,
no,
but
I think that makes sense. I do think that makes sense. I think it's interesting because everybody's experience is very unique in the sense that some people kind of feel the need to tackle certain issues head on. Some people are kind of slightly bit more oblivious to it until it's kind of made really apparent. I think you, as you mentioned, maybe the cultural differences give us different perspectives on certain situations. So no, I think you've answered that in the best way possible, which is your way. So it makes perfect sense to
yeah,
me.
it's such a personal situation, but it's so important to have the tools, the access to individuals who can help you, get through those incidences or scenarios where you need guidance. So that's why these movements, with supporting women and all those things that go along with it are so important, especially for the next generation of young women entering, the business space.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of the next generation of young women, what do you think needs to kind of happen to bridge that kind of gender gap? I mean, I think a lot of work is being done, but everybody who I speak to says that, of course, there's more work to be done. Some people, think that it's not so much more women, but more young people in general, but what, specifically on the gender piece, what do you think kind of needs to happen in this space?
Well, I'm actually thrilled to see how many, younger generations are getting more and more involved in social issues. And it's really refreshing to see that. I think um, my generation and the generation after me, I'm in my late 40s, and, the parents who are really educated, becoming more involved with their children's lives, and there's more communication between them. So that has made our next generation more aware of these social issues that need to be addressed, and they're the ones who are going to make the true difference in the long run. So I'm really delighted to see that, but at the same time, organizations like yourselves, these kinds of, like you said, macro level, and then on the micro level, each individual in their own way in a daily life, we are all responsible to help guide the next generation and really share openly all of our experiences, good, bad, and the ugly, and everything in between, for them to truly understand what has happened and what has taken place, for them to take that on and really be the leaders in the future, to continue the path that many have already worked hard on to build for them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think we all have a combined responsibility to really tackle this issue head on. Well, moving to my last question, if you can believe that it's gone so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and again, this is an interesting question because often when I speak to many women in this space and I say, you're considered very successful, you're at pretty much at the top of your career, of course you've got more growing to do, but for a young person entering this space or a young woman entering this space, you are very much a mentor. What single piece of advice would you give a young woman who wants to kind of do what you've done and reach the top of their career? If you were speaking to yourself, 10, 20 years ago, what would you say?
Work harder than your peers if you really want to, get to the next level. Don't allow anybody crush your dreams and goals, and network. I think networking is so important. Building that, community who you can tap into to support you, not just with your career, but also sometimes personal challenges. And, we just had a conversation yesterday. I'm going to be speaking on another panel this Saturday with another organization with some mentees, specifically young generation who are entering the workspace. And that's exactly what we were talking about, how building a network and being able to tap into it so that at any time in your career, if you decide to change gears and try something new, you would easily be able to transition into that because you have built that network. So I think for me personally, having built that, amazing group of people in my circle, close, immediate, and then also further out, has been a huge asset to me. And I truly encourage young generation to not take that for granted and continue building on that. It will pay off in the long run so much. I can't even tell you.
Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear because I think people forget that networking is not just about, moving up. It also grants you a great deal of flexibility. So that's certainly something I think we should all bear in mind. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bita. If you can believe it, that was my last question. I appreciate so much for taking the time to speak to us. You are one of our esteemed winners from, 2019. So, of course, we wanted to speak to you ahead of the 2020 awards this year.
Thank you so
And
much.
yes,
I
no problem.
appreciate you having me on, and I'm so glad organizations and initiatives like yours exist in this world, and more power to all of you.
Perfect. And with that, I'm going to pass back to you, Jal. Thanks a lot.